question, the Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question's for the Acting Premier. For over a century, Ontario's public hydro system made our province an economic powerhouse that provided good jobs and prosperity for Ontario's families and businesses. But after decades of Conservative and Liberal privatization, Ontarians are now struggling to pay hydro bills that are skyrocketing. People literally have to choose between keeping the lights on and putting food on the table. In Ontario, in 2017, this is just unacceptable. Why did this Liberal government pick up and run with the disastrous privatization policies of their Conservative predecessors and cause hydro bills for Ontario families and businesses to soar even further?
Deputy Premier.
The Minister of Energy.
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and talk about Ontario's Fair Hydro Plan, Mr. Speaker, which has seen a 25% reduction that's happening right across the province in every single household. And when it comes to Hydro One, Mr. Speaker, R1 and R2 customers will be seeing even further decreases, Mr. Speaker. They're seeing anywhere between 40% and 50% in reductions in their electricity bill. And that's because, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we acted. We recognized that too many folks that were living in northern and rural parts of our province were paying proportionally more than others in other parts of the province. So, Mr. Speaker, we worked with Hydro One, we worked with poverty groups, we worked with rural associations, and we changed the RRP to actually bring forward a further decrease, Mr. Speaker, to now where they can see their bills dropping between 40% and 50% per month, Mr. Speaker. We've actually brought forward that and the First Nation delivery tax credit. That is actually changing the lives of many of those people right around the province, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Speaker, they acted all right. Hydro rates have gone up 300% under this Liberal government, and in fact they went up 50% just under this particular Premier. Apparently, the Conservatives think this shows good hydro policy because they plan to continue the disastrous Liberal hydro plan if they win next year. When the Premier sold off Hydro One, she told Ontarians that it was a good thing, that it would eventually actually mean lower rates for families and businesses. But earlier this year, a privatized Hydro One demanded a 20% distribution rate increase on people's hydro bills. Can the Acting Premier tell us how increasing hydro bills for Ontario families who are already struggling to keep up is a good thing, Speaker?
Thank you. Minister.
The good thing, Mr. Speaker, was our plan to actually reduce Hydro One customers' bills between 40% and 50%, Mr. Speaker, that member and that party voted against. When looking at the decision that's before the OEB right now, Mr. Speaker, we've actually said all along, and part of the Fair Hydro Plan is that we're keeping the costs to the rate of inflation, Mr. Speaker. So again, making the numbers up, the cost will be held to the rate of inflation. Also, Mr. Speaker, depending on Hydro One's draft rate order, it's estimated that the bill impact for 2017 would be an increase of 0.1%. and for 2018, Mr. Speaker, 0.2%. But that again, Mr. Speaker, also comes on top of the 40% to 50% reduction that we brought forward to the people of Ontario through the Fair Hydro Plan, changing the RRP, increasing the OESP, increasing the First Nations delivery credit, and many more, Mr. Speaker.
Final supplementary.
I don't think anybody believes that a 300% increase and then a 40% to 50% decrease is leaving people better off. It's still a 250% increase, Speaker. The privatized Hydro One is putting private profits ahead of public interest. Earlier this year, Hydro One signed a deal to buy Avista, we all remember that, an American energy company, for more than $6 billion. The OEB told Hydro One that they're spending their money poorly. The OEB said that profits should go into improving the grid and reducing bills for families and businesses. Instead, Hydro One plans to spend $6 billion on an Avista investment, which will do nothing other than line the pockets of private investors. Can the Acting Premier tell us how the lining of pockets of private investors and shareholders will keep Ontario families and businesses from paying skyrocketing hydro bills?
Thank you. Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we've seen bills at Hydro One customers, R1 and R2 customers drop between 40 and 50%, Mr. Speaker. That is actually significantly lower than where they were last year, and we're getting accolades, Mr. Speaker, from poverty groups, from organizations that have seen the changes by the Fair Hydro plan that we implemented, Mr. Speaker. Not with any help from the opposition, of course, Mr. Speaker, because neither one of them wanted to help low-income individuals. They never even talked about it in their plan, Mr. Speaker. First Nations, they have seen their delivery credit disappear, changing the lives of many of our First Nations people that live on reserves, Mr. Speaker, and we're getting thanks from First Nation organizations. When it comes to the acquisition of Avista, Mr. Speaker, there will absolutely be no rate impacts affecting the people of Ontario, and as I said before, Mr. Speaker, we're seeing a reduction of between 40 and 50%.